ask you to list the things that you are unable to do consistently, what would that list look like? For me, simple things like filing the expense report. I have filed one entire year's expense report at one shot. One time I remember I was driving around in America with my insurance policy cancelled because I didn't pay the premium and I was not aware of it. In India, I didn't pay the power bill and the power fuse got taken out. For 3 days without power, I was running from pillar to post. Exercise, retirement planning, anything long term, transformation, proactive learning, any of these I am not able to do consistently. If something doesn't have an immediate reward or penalty, I don't do them consistently, I procrastinate. This is the story of my life. By some lucky accident, I was thinking about the Stephen Covey 7 Habits, which I had read a long time back, and I remembered this matrix, the urgent important matrix, and that's how he had named the matrix 1, 2, 3, and 4. I realized that all the things that we procrastinate or do inconsistently are what I decided to call the green zone tasks, which I just covered: exercise, transformation, and so on. I decided to combine quadrant 1 and 3 as the reactive zone because we are reacting to external events here. The boss's request, the client request, some escalation, firefighting. And even my phone rang just now, I would still pick it up and see who is calling. So it may not be important, but I still treat it as urgent and pick it up. Or I go to quadrant 4, or what I call the entertainment zone, to pass time, social media, watch TV, and so on. Now, if you look at what Covey's advice was for quadrant 2, he said first you identify all the roles that you play, husband, boss, and so on. And then you identify weekly goals, which are in line with your overall mission and purpose. Then you schedule them and do them and adjust the schedule daily based on what happens. He doesn't even use the word procrastination. The only thing he alludes to is that don't get carried away by quadrant 4 activities, is what he says. Now what I realized is that through the week, the yellow and red zone tasks take away our time and we are stressed out, and we jump into the entertainment zone for relaxation, leaving no time for the green zone tasks, and it is okay to procrastinate. That's how our life is going on. So I picked one green zone task to fix. And fitness experts say that we should do 180 minutes of vigorous exercise. Vigorous means that your heart rate needs to be at a certain level. If I think about what my barriers were at that time, I would look at inspiring pictures like that and I conclude that it's just too boring or painful, and continue on with my watching TV or enjoying myself and procrastinate the exercise to tomorrow. This is what I was. Through another lucky accident, I had come across Professor B.J. Fogg's Tiny Habits method in the year 2012. And I started simply with a tiny habit: 2 push-ups after I brush my teeth every morning. And that took me all of 2 seconds. All the barriers that I had already described melted away in the face of just a 2-second piece of work, which I was able to comfortably do. Within 120 days, I had hit 15 push-ups and I had a surprisingly triceps breakout. I was already 45 by then, and I was a pure vegetarian with very little protein in my diet. So it was very surprising to get a triceps breakout. I did not have any muscle before that at all. So let's watch a demo of how I did during that period with my push-ups. I want to start with a demo. I have never done this before in public, so please give me some encouragement, okay? Thank you. Now, within 355 days, I had hit 50 push-ups at one go. Let's watch a demo of that. Okay, people, I'm starting with push-ups. 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So by the 5th anniversary of my 50 push-ups 2017, I noticed that my procrastination has dramatically lowered itself. And I was trying to understand why and how that was happening. Very interesting. Through another lucky accident that I recall that had already happened, N.K. Sridhar, my mentee and friend, had given me this brilliant book, Strangers to Ourselves by Timothy Wilson, a book about the subconscious. In that, he opens with a very interesting experiment done by a scientist by name Edward Clapperreid. I'm sure the pronunciation is not accurate. Edward Clapperreid is a neuroscientist, and he conducts an experiment on an amnesiac woman. He goes to meet her every day, and obviously the next day she doesn't remember that she met Edward. One day he takes a pin in his hand, and when she shakes his hand, he pricks her hand. And the next day, when he went and met her and again extended his hand, she hesitated because her subconscious had picked up that he had pricked her hand. So that is how powerful the subconscious brain is. Now he goes on to show some interesting statistics about the brain. The conscious brain processes 40 packets of information per second. Now how much do you think the subconscious processes? I fell out of my chair when I saw in his book that it processes 11 million packets of information per second. So you can say our conscious brain is like a snail and the subconscious is like the rocket ship. Whether or not you believe in these numbers, it's quite obvious that the subconscious is exponentially more powerful. Armed with this knowledge of the subconscious, I decided to go back into my fitness record and check. Previous best was 3 months I had done my exercise. 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 hour a day. You can see those green boxes when I had done the exercise. I had done all 12. And the 13th week I went abroad for an international trip and my program stopped. Whereas in the tiny habits method, you saw that even 55 push-ups was taking only less than a minute. So 1 minute a day, that I can say is 1 effort unit compared to the 100 effort units for 1 hour that I assigned. Now interestingly, I would brush my teeth and do few push-ups, right? So that sequence I was maintaining every day and I was doing it daily. Whereas if you look at my previous best, yes, I did all weeks, but some days I had to do it in the evening, and even in the morning I was not doing it in the same sequence. It was not exactly happening like that, and that seems to matter to the subconscious. And let's dig further. I did some back of the envelope calculations. In the 3 days a week program, I calculated that we got about 192,000 learning units. But interestingly, the procrastination part, which is what we do more of, even if we say the thinking effort is just 0.1 effort unit, when it gets multiplied by the 11 million subconscious, you get to 1.1 million. Which is why it is harder for us to beat the procrastination thing. It is much, much stronger. It's a subconscious process. But interestingly, in the case of tiny habits, even though it is only 1 effort unit, it is a subconscious process, and hence it becomes 11 million. It becomes exponentially stronger than the procrastination. This is why I was able to do this better, and I decided to call this tiny grit. Now I was talking to Kumaran about it, and he came up with the great idea that this procrastination thing should be called tiny demon. And you can see here that the tiny demon has learned how to ride the rocket ship, whereas we are still stuck in the conscious zone, 3 days a week and so on. So tiny habits helps us build this tiny. I decided to research this further, and at first I thought that marathoners and other people who do regular exercise would have more of tiny grit. I interviewed a lot of marathoners, friend of friends and so on, And it turns out that all of them procrastinate. That's what made me realize that the habit needs to be fine-grained or tiny. It looks like marathoners are building some other neural circuit and not tiny grit. Maybe they are building the grit, which is a bigger thing. So if I started realizing that we seem to have landed on the language of the subconscious, sequence and daily repetition, brushing teeth, do that. So the brain knows that you're going to do something intensive. It starts activating those muscles. It has to be a movement based, fine grain, and we figured out that if we journal, I've talked about journaling, the weight, gratitude journal, and so on in this series. That seems to impact the subconscious as well. Having a strong belief also matters. I had the strong belief that this thing will work. Now, many times we struggle with the lack of belief. Intention orientation is something that my co-founder Kumaran came up with, and that seems to be another way to influence the subconscious. Slowly and steadily, we have identified about 9 aspects of the subconscious language, all of which we cover in our HypoHub framework. We have been teaching tiny habits to our mentees for nearly 5 years now. At first, we did not insist on any particular tiny habit. People would build all kinds of habits. And then by another case of a lucky accident, we realized that only heavy duty tiny habits work to build the tiny grit. Otherwise, the tiny grit doesn't seem to get built. So we're working with a fitness trainer. We picked these 6 exercises: push-ups, planks, Surya Namaskar, super brain yoga, burpees. And we designed with our fitness trainer a set of exercises called tiny cardio, which we can all pick up because the cardiac muscles seem to respond the fastest to muscle building. So we get our mentees to do any of these 6 exercises to build tiny grit, and many mentees report that this tiny grit seems to be building for them as well.